Welcome to Will Shipley night here at Death Valley, where just behind me, Clemson defeated North Carolina 31-20 just a few minutes ago. And it was senior day that became senior night, and it was Will Shipley that was the biggest star for Clemson. Of course, North Carolina's stars, and that's Drake May, quarterback, and running back Marion Hampton, they showed out. They made their plays and they landed a few blows against Clemson's defense. But in the end, it was Will Shipley and Cade Klubnik that stood taller. And of course, the Clemson defense, which was no surprise coming into this game. The narrative was it's the Clemson defense against the North Carolina offense. And that played out for much of the evening because North Carolina controlled the ball early on. But it was Clemson's defense that was making the key plays. In the first half, North Carolina moved the ball seemingly at will, big play after big play from Drake May, either with his legs or his arms. And Marion Hampton, who ended up rushing for 178 yards for North Carolina, he made big plays. But here's how the game turned. Early on, North Carolina was hurting Clemson's defense, but Clemson didn't show any quit. And despite giving up big plays in the first quarter, created two crucial turnovers inside their own 10-yard line. The second one, as Nate Wiggins made a hustle play, chasing down Marion Hampton and stripping the ball at the goal line. The ball dribbled just out of bounds beyond the pylon, which, if you know the rule, that's a touchback, a turnover from North Carolina, and a touchback in favor of Clemson. So big plays like that turned the game, shifted the momentum in Clemson's favor. So on the night, in the end, it was actually Cade Klubnik who tossed for more yards than Drake May. Drake May made so many plays early on, but I will tell you, I was watching this because Clemson was not making big plays in the first half. They were just nicking and cutting North Carolina, but they ran 52 plays. And I made a note of that. We tweeted it at Sports Talk SC. Let's see if North Carolina tires in the second half, and they did. And Clemson had the perfect weapon to exploit a tired defense, and that's Will Shipley. 179 total yards for Will Shipley, many of those in the second half, 126 yards on the ground, big play after big play, electrifying the crowd. And if you were here inside Death Valley, I think you could see the crowd feeding off Will Shipley and vice versa. He loved being back in the spotlight. It was so hard for him, he said earlier in the week during the media interviews. As much as he loves Phil Maffa and seeing him take the spotlight, it's so hard for him as a competitor to be out of it. And he wanted that. He yearned for that again. And it happened tonight as he was making big plays, breaking tackles, shaking North Carolina defenders, just big play after big play. And Death Valley responded in kind by cheering him on. And Will Shipley forgot all about the injuries he'd suffered earlier in the season, forgot all about the concussion, the late hits that he suffered. And instead just fed off that energy and gave it right back for Clemson. So big night for Will Shipley. Good night for Cade Klubnik. Played turnover free. As I said, 219 yards and a touchdown for Cade Klubnik. That bested Drake May's 209 yards. And I should mention this. Not only did Nate Wiggins make a big play in the first half, he iced the game with a late interception of Drake May as well. So Clemson just kept battering away, ran 52 plays in the first half, 89 overall, and you could see North Carolina tire as the night went on. So what does this mean for Clemson? Well, the passing game still needs work. Yes, I say 219 yards for Cade Klubnik, but much of that was just gutting it out. Passes to Troy Stellato or Will Shipley taking a screen pass and making relatively nothing into something. Clemson probably needs more next week when they kick off against South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, they're growing. They're going to roll into, depending on what happens tonight against Kentucky, they'll roll into the week with some momentum as well. But hard to beat what Clemson's got cooking right now, 3-game winning streak. But as I said, maybe need more out of the passing game because the running game is there. Phil Maffa, another nice night for Phil Maffa as part of the 1-2 punch with Will Shipley. No worries there. The offensive line playing a little bit better, giving Cade Klubnik time, but still something's not right with this Clemson passing attack. As many athletes as they have on the outside, and the arm talent of Cade Klubnik, they should be putting up more than 219 yards through the air against a North Carolina defense that we've seen struggle at times, giving up over 600 yards to Georgia Tech earlier in the season, nearly 500 yards to Appalachian State. So, yes, plenty to be proud of for Clemson. How good are they going to be through the air? That perhaps might be a question they need to work on in the offseason. It's hard to believe. With Garrett Riley as your offensive coordinator, arm talent like Cade Klubnik, and then athletes on the outside that Clemson has recruited, like Adam Randall and others, but it doesn't click. It doesn't click. But we'll see. We'll see. They certainly had no problem moving the football on the ground in the second half against North Carolina. 89 plays total against the Tar Heels. They wore them down. 466 yards total for Clemson on the night. So big offensive night, but most of that coming in the second half. So if that was the game plan, A+ on the game plan. Tremendous plan against the Tar Heels, because eventually they battered away with Shipley and Maffa, and North Carolina was gasping for air, hands on hips, and you can't arm tackle Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. That's been proven over and again. So Clemson runs its record to 6-4. They avoid having a losing record in the ACC. They still have the opportunity, not for 10 wins, but if they could, they probably don't need to think about it, but they're certainly bowl eligible. They will go to a bowl game, so they can finish nicely. They can finish strong, perhaps even challenge for a spot in the top 25 rankings. A nice turn after the struggles they had earlier in the season and the disappointments against Duke, Miami, and NC State. So that's it from here. The big story, Will Shipley. Not exactly a coming out party, just a resurgence for Will Shipley. Looked completely healthy. And, of course, South Carolina will have to contend with him, Phil Maffa, and what appears to be a pretty confident Cade Klubnik right now, and certainly a defense that is playing its heart out with Nate Wiggins, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., it just over and again. Peter Woods making a play tonight, forcing a fumble. Everybody knows what Clemson's defense has, and South Carolina's offensive line will absolutely have its hands full with that front four that I saw tonight harassing Drake May. So that's it. That's Sports Talk at the Stadium, presented by the South Carolina Beef Council. Matt Smith here at Death Valley. Be sure to tune in to Sports Talk all week long as Phil Kornblut, Chris Bergen, Pat Daniel, and guests will break it all down, and we'll roll into rivalry week with the best coverage of Clemson and South Carolina you'll find anywhere.